Hello, my name is Dr. Edward McCloskey. I'm a Chinese medicine doctor, and welcome to Unity Health Podcast. I'm curious about what health means, how illness occurs, and how we heal. We'll be going through a journey exploring the common threads that link many different traditions, therapies, and systems which have something in common. They help to heal people. Let's get started. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not suitable for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult a qualified healthcare provider with any questions about your health. The views shared are personal opinions and should not be taken as medical advice. Nico, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
I am curious, with your background in plant medicine, what does health mean to you?
Health, as I've understood it, working with ayahuasca. Actually, I understood it one time during a ceremony where I saw that health is not just my body feels good, but health is a state of deep harmony with life. Health is when the life that I am is flowing, is dancing in harmony with life itself. Meaning there's no part of me that is slacking or holding back or resisting the movement. There's also no part of me that is rushing for it, you know. So ultimately, this is being there's something that is at fight. There's some friction, and friction happens if I move both of my hands like this. There's no friction. If this one is moving faster, there's gonna be some friction. Or if it moves slower, there's also gonna be some like drag, and it's gonna generate friction and heat, and it's going to be wasted energy. So for me, understanding of health is deep harmony with life. And that means within and without. Understanding from the shamanic traditions or many spiritual traditions, life is not just I'm alive and then the rest is something else, but life includes my environment, my relationships, my community, my land. Like my life doesn't end where my body ends, but it extends into everything I see, the water I drink, the air that I breathe. So if there's harmony in this relationship, internally and externally, that's ultimate health.
Mhm. And do you think that as a society, we are less in harmony now than we were before?
Yes. Yeah, I think the numbers, the statistics show we have extended the length of human life, but not the quality. If anything, we're living longer, but far more miserable. People say, "Oh, science." We used to the average age. I don't know how many years ago was. I don't know, mid-30s. Most people were dying. 40s. Okay, sure. But how was the quality of life? Maybe people were dying because they were preventable diseases, for sure, because of poisoning, because of things that were preventable. Sure, part of it. I also feel that perhaps life was the journey was complete. People were involved, connected to the life to the point that at an earlier age, what they had to learn in this round was completed, and they could go easily. I think right now we hold on to it. I don't know if I don't know what your perspective is on this, but for example, I see the biohacking industry, and I think there's beautiful data coming in, beautiful things that can kind of resuscitate someone that is in a very sluggish set of health, kind of health. But I forget his name. There's this guy that invests I don't know how many millions per year to he wants to be
Brian Johnson?
I think so that he's like he says he has the slowest aging kind of
Yeah.
thing, and 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 I don't think that fear of dying is the same as love of living.
Mm.
And I think a lot of what society does today for health is fear of death. Let's manage the symptoms. Let's avoid this. Let's avoid aging. For women, is this is horrible. Like aging is something we want to hide. Wrinkles, losing our hair, the white hairs. Uh, we're fighting life. It's part of life. Like the flower blooms and wilts, and it's the winter comes, then spring, then summer, and it goes round and round. But when it comes to our bodies, we resist it so much. Why? I think we resist aging because we are not living well. So we cling. Like let me just biohack. Let me do this 3 hour, 5 hour morning routine to keep my skin looking like a baby. Let me hide in isolation, fearing death, instead of actually living my life. And I think we become um, if you see how to put this, my understanding of life is uh, there's this big movement of energy, which is how do you want to call it, the creator, the creation, God, source, the universe, and everything is a fractal of it. So we see there's a lot of cancer in across cultures, right? Something that this did not exist in indigenous cultures. Actually, the elder that I work with that serves ayahuasca, he calls many things like anxiety, depression, cancer, burnout, ADHD. He calls it city sickness. He's like we don't have those in the jungle. He says people in the cities, that's hell on earth for him. He was surprised the first time he came out to a city and saw and I felt like, wow, like these people are miserable. And city people will come to the jungle and think these people are poor, they live in extreme poverty. And he will come to the city and think, wow, these people are living total hell. Um, and if we look at it, what cancer is there's a cell, starts with a cell that starts reproducing itself in a way that is disconnected from the body, in a way that it starts to break the systems, in a way that basically it's a cell that is isolated, that has forgotten it is part of a greater system, and as such, it's in such angst for living, for not dying, that it reproduces itself, trying to sustain itself. But in that process, it starts disrupting the organs, the tissues, whatever it is placed, and ultimately it destroys the whole system. So as humans, we're kind of doing the same. We have isolated ourselves. We think nature is something we visit on the weekend. We don't see ourselves as part of nature. At least I didn't growing up, and it was something that I had to relearn. Like this is a piece of the soil that I borrowed, and we're isolated from nature. We think nature is a resource. Even humans are a resource. As we have human resources, like we think human beings or nature as a resource, not nature as the source of life. That's how disconnected we are. So it's something we use to make whatever I need. A tree is not a piece of life, it's just wood for my house or for whatever I need it. The soil is not the source of life, but it's something that I have to, uh, is for my benefit, for whatever I want to plant, for the crops, for, high yield, high return investments into agriculture. And ultimately, we've isolated ourselves, and in this process, we are becoming kind of like a tumor. And cities are pretty much like that. Is a disease, this separation, because now we're not moving with nature, we're moving faster, slower, or against it. So to your question, yeah, we that separation is the source of our disease, and we're more separated than we have ever been from each other and from life.
So this sense of separation and disconnection, and you also mentioned fear, right? Probably fear is a byproduct of the sense of separation. Um, what happened? Why did we start to become more separated?
Mhm. There's so many layers to it. I'll share at the deepest level. This is completely perfect, and the thought that we've gotten separated is the same illusion that we experience when someone breaks our heart and we feel miserable and we hate the person and we feel I'm never gonna fall in love again and we're crying and cursing and we think God doesn't exist because my heart is broken because this love of my life betrays me or it failed. And years later, we look back at that with gratitude because in that process of breaking, we broke down and we broke through. We built on top of what we thought was a curse was the hand of the creator, was grace, was a gift that was unpleasant to unpack. But almost every single person, not almost, I will say, like every single person who's been alive for long enough can look back at points of severe pain and suffering and feeling of disconnection and see that those were the catalyst moments for great blessings for them getting their like rock bottom. You know what? I need to get my health together. I need to quit my addictions. I need to do something about this. I'm done being codependent, whatever it is, relationships, business, health. There's usually this moment of deep, it feels like a fracture, like something wrong. But in retrospect, we look back at it and we think, oh, this is just perfect. So at one level, the experience of fear is perfection. Just in the moment, it doesn't feel like that. In the moment, it just feels like, wow, we're in the highway to hell. We're in the highway to destroying ourselves, our lands, our human species. But in the large scope of things, is we're going to this breakup and we're overwhelmed and depressed and anxious and separated. And that separation is forcing a lot of people, a lot of humans to wake up, right? That health crisis that's forcing for people to consider alternative medicines, heartbreaks, fame, financial bankruptcy, or even financial well-being. I've spoken to billionaires that have way more money they could spend in 100 lives, and they're seeking for God. So at the deepest level, the fear is just part of the game. It's like, it's like there's a soccer match, and then the time is counting, and so the opposite team just scored a goal, and you're thinking, oh no, we're gonna lose. And if you remember that it's a game, then we can enjoy it and have the comeback, continue dancing the dance. That's, I would say, at the deepest level, everything is okay, everything is fine, part of the game, perfection in even in the fear. Now we pull back from that, where we get a bit more practical. I would say that food programs a lot of who we are. We think this is just what I do to keep myself alive, but everything we put into our bodies becomes this. It becomes the minerals, the cells, the tissues, the things that generate electricity for my brain to work. We are literally what we eat. And there's a component that, because it's not easy to measure, although there's so many ways in which it can be measured, that we don't pay attention to, which is the energy, the life force of that which we eat. And if a cow is about to be killed, generates a lot of cortisol and stress hormones. And cows, when they're walking on the way to their slaughterhouse, they are crying. Like I've met men that used to work there that went vegetarian because they couldn't stand the fact that this animal knows what's about to happen and feels grief about it. Now, when it goes into that kind of space and the way that it dies, there's a lot of extra chemicals of cortisol, probably adrenaline, probably other things that are secreted and that are stored in the muscle. And then that's what we eat. And because these chemicals or these hormones are so similar to ours, suddenly our body has a bit like there's an excess of adrenaline, cortisol, different things, and it's more likely for us to experience those emotions. People say, well, human beings have been carnivore for a while. I'm not making a case against meat, but our relationship with killing, there was in indigenous cultures, they will gather very often ayahuasca was used for hunting. They will sit down, they will gather, they will drink the medicine, and they will ask for the spirit of the jungle, for the spirit of where it was the monkey or the animals they were about to hunt. They will ask for permission. They will say, like we need we need you to sustain our lives. And there was this reverence to that journey where even when they killed, they never killed more than they needed because they understood, nature is giving this to us. We have to end a piece of life to sustain ours. And there's a certain grief with that, certain appreciation. You know what? This sustains my life. Um, the relationship with food was just very different. And they believed that the animals that allowed themselves to be caught were offering themselves as a tribute, as a sacrifice for life. So through this sexual relationship, where even if it was an animal that was slaughtered, uh, it was in a very specific context. And I believe that changes a lot of things. So in today we have a lot of food that is very processed, which our body doesn't know what it is. It's confused and it's just, what is it? Did I get protein? It's a milkshake of 1,000 different cows and I don't really know what it is, this piece of ham. Um, or there's a plant that has been modified in a way that is so unnatural that the body is struggling to know what to do with, or there's so many chemicals that it had sprayed. So from the very beginning, there is already like we are eating fear, we're eating stress, we're eating anxiety, we're eating confusion. We're putting this into our system and we're expecting to have a clear mind when the the molecular structure, the energy, even sometimes the hormones that are present in our food are programming us towards something different. So I would say that a big part uh, of mental health is redefining our relationship with food and exploring. I'm not saying plant-based is for everybody. My wife eats meat and she's healthier like that. But there has to be a certain reverence, a certain intentionality to everything I eat, because ultimately, if we're not taking good care of what we're putting into your system, it's not impossible, but it's very hard to have a mind that is really ours. So we are what we eat directly affects our brain. Sure, we can eat like garbage and be good people and think clearly and have happy thoughts and be stable and whatnot. It's way, 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 way harder because we're swimming against what is present in our system. So I'd say, you say, well, why are we afraid? Big part of that is we're eating fear, we're eating disconnection, we're building blocks of our body are not building blocks of harmony. Or at the very least, our relationship with it is not, sometimes when I eat fish, which is rarely, like uh, I remind myself that this is something gave its life. Even if it's a chickpea, a peanut, that had to give its life for me to continue mine. That like our heart needs to break a little bit to understand how blessed we are and what a gift it is to have food on our plate. And just that allows us to receive it with a certain sanctity. And if we receive it in that way, it acts within us in a very different way. It's it's also well known that two people can eat the exact same kind of meals and nutrients and everything, and one can become obese and the other one can be very healthy. Why? Because the inner state in which we are when we assimilate foods affects how nutrients are extracted, allocated, whether you store a lot because you're in fight or flight, so your body thinks you need to survive, so let's take some to go, or whether your body is rest and digest, relax, and it can optimize for what it needs. So there's that, and I think from that we have the maybe the top layer, which is we have very powerful technologies and we don't have very disciplined minds. So we are children as a society, as a yeah, as a society, as a species, we are children with shaky hands and very sharp knives. And we're wondering, why am I full of cuts? Why does it hurt so much? Mm, we don't have to ditch the knife, but we have at one point to sit down and recognize, like, all right, like my hands are shaky. Let us slow down a little bit and learn to still to settle my hand so that everything that I use can be of use to me, and I don't end up being used by the technology that I create. So that will be the top layer where we we nurture fear, where we nurture separation, where we feel we're away from each other. So deepest layer, it's all perfect. Middle layer, we eat building blocks of fear and disconnection. And then on the top one, also part of our development is that our minds are not yet mature, generally speaking, to handle what modern day looks like. So we're catching up, and even very conscious people. I have friends that have done a lot of inner work, beautiful human beings, and they have to like delete Instagram from their phones because they find themselves consumed by the algorithm, and ultimately it's it's part of that.
So before we continue, I just want to give a little introduction about you, Nico. So Nicholas is an international best-selling author and founder of Ayahuasca Colombia, where he guides impact-driven leaders through sacred plant medicine initiations. He specializes in helping high achievers get unstuck by breaking through their deepest blockages to embody authentic power, unshakable clarity, and soul-aligned purpose, transforming not just how they lead, but who they become. And you can find Nico on Instagram is the way that people can find you best,
Yeah.
right?
Add Nico Cannon and then underscore, yes.
Okay. So I can put that on the link also to the podcast for people to find.
Mm-hmm.
So um, we talked about fear, we talked about separation, we talked about this idea of the like how the shamans in Colombia refer to a lot of people in modern life, the little brothers, right? Little brothers, little sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And this idea that, we're children playing with highly developed technological weapons, right? And it seems like we're in like a process of almost maturing. And you talk about this idea of this maturing almost requires us to break a little bit. Like you said, it requires for our hearts to break a little bit in order for us to become more connected to our environment. And it feels like it's such a scary thing to do because people are just holding on to their life as it is, where they're suffering, they want things to change, but they don't want you to take away the routines and the things that are the very reasons why they're having that suffering. So it creates a state of desperation for people, right? These
Mm-hmm.
people that are coming to see you probably are in a state of they're kind of at the end of the rope. And it almost feels like that's where most people need to get to for some point, for some reason. They need to get to a state of like desperation until they seek out this sort of intervention. So I wonder why that is. And I also wonder, what if we had more wisdom, more wise people in our life that would help us to understand that it's okay to go through these rites and rituals. You're not gonna die. It's not going to be that scary. I wonder if the reason why we're so scared is because we don't have enough wise teachers in our lives to let us know that things are gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. We are spiritual orphans to a large degree. There's very few people, and those who have an elders they walk with, or they have at least wise friends in their life that they can count on. Um, First, they're lucky, they're privileged, and very often they have sought them out. Before it was societies were structured. There was There was a place for, there was a king, but there were also the sages. There were the counselors. There was a spiritual person of influence to make sure that also the king's decisions were uh, tested against something greater. But also in indigenous culture, there were the elder circles. There were the ritual, the rites of passage that allowed for humans to have some structure, to understand when do I stop being a boy? When do I become a man? What does it mean to become a man? Same for a woman, right? Ritual and ceremony, which was cultures coming and providing some structure, some context, kind of like some training wheels for the human condition. And we've lost that across the board. Today, there are elders, there's wise people, but someone has to seek them out and find them and generate a friendship. Whereas before, it's like you're born, you're part of a group, you're part of a community. There's a group of elders that are overlooking and taking care of that community. In the jungle, the spiritual leader was always they call them taitas, and that they were usually both the chief, like the political leader of the tribe, but they were also the shaman. They were the spiritual visionary. And the word taita in Colombia, for example, it means father. Taita means father, but it's because they become fathers for everybody, like spiritual fathers. Suddenly they have that role of helping mature their tribe and guiding them, pointing the way. So if we look at politics today, I don't think there's many people who will pass the test of wisdom. I think there's a lot of disconnection. So at the structural level, there's a lack of trustworthy leadership and role models. I believe it's by design because men and women that are raised with wisdom are not men that are not consumers. They don't grow to be consumers in a compulsive way.
Yeah.
They don't fit into the machine.
Yeah.
And the machine needs the human resource to like be thrown into it to keep producing whatever it is producing, which is not serving us. But a man that understands who he is as a man, usually is not a man that is very obedient. It's not a man that participates that follows blindly what politicians do and say. There is more agency, which is not useful for, like, if you want to control people, you take away their agency. You take away, and one of the fastest way to do that is you make sure that they don't trust themselves. They don't see themselves as capable, courageous. They don't have clarity, or they don't have rights or ceremonies that could bring them into a set of clarity about who they are and what they are here to do. So in their lack of clarity, they're looking for someone to tell them, this is who you are, this is what you should do, this is what you should buy, this is what being a man or a woman, a successful man or a successful woman means. You take away their connection to nature, to God. This ensures that people feel isolated and probably that they worship other humans or other people or things. And you build into them the lie that they are victims of their environment, that they don't have emotional agency, that they're not responsible for their life or what they feel, that somebody else is to blame. If we do all of this, then people become very obedient. So they think that their circumstances define who they are. And then if you adjust their circumstances enough, you get them acting in the exact way that you want them to act. So structurally, things are set up this way. And that's why it takes a person, like a spiritual person into this world must be a rebellious. It must be someone that questions everything, not from a cynical point of view, not just as an intellectual debate, but questions everything because they seek to understand, not to destroy. There's a lot of people that they question, hey, why are you saying this? Hey, you think ayahuasca works? There's people that have a boycotting attitude towards things. And there's others that are seekers, which are like, hey, why do you think this path is good? Do you think it will be for me? Why this instead of this? At least posing the question is where we should sit, not blind faith. Um, and next to that is, all right, I wish I had grown around elders, or that I had had a voice of wisdom, especially a male voice of wisdom that I could trust. And my father was to some degree, but not spiritually, not in some ways that mattered, that were needed. Um, what I'm seeing is that we have the possibility to be tomorrow's elders. If we felt like spiritual orphans growing up, if we felt disconnected from a lineage, from a path, from wisdom, from clarity, from teachings that could allow us to live well, it's our opportunity to leave a legacy to our children, or to future children, of like, hey, you know what? At least in my community, for example, even this that you're doing, this podcast, is you're planting seeds for, we don't know, 1 person, 1 million, 10 million people will not watch it, but this is you and I trying to bring some clarity, or at least some questions or some reflection to people who are seeking it. That's trying to be elder, trying to give some of what we have received. And we've had to invest a lot of our time and money and life into learning from people that we trust, making mistakes along the way to understand, okay, you know what? We don't have the truth, but we have experiences of it, glimpses of it, and things that have worked for us that we can stand for. Um, I see that as our responsibility. Like, all right, I wish I had had an elder, and I can come here and I can grieve the fact that society is structured in a way that it's not convenient for people in power, that there's solid leadership at the ground. I can throw stones at that, but that's not going to build a better future. Ultimately, all right, what did I want? I want this. Let me take a step towards creating it. Whatever that looks like, let me share my message. Let me create institutions or spaces where young men are allowed, where they're invited, where they're heard. Um, but yeah, it is. I think that is foundational part of it. What we do with our elder is we just pack them in a retirement home and just don't go visit them. They're a nuisance. They're a burden, and with that we lose some of the wisdom that we could have received.
It's so backwards, that mentality. We're so arrogant, and to think that we know we know better, and to forget the wisdom of the elders. I think that you mentioned the idea of the machine, and this concept of the machine. What is it? Why doesn't it want our best interest?
I would say again layers. The main layer is shared. Why? Because there's people that benefit from it and have a lot of control and power. So, and I would say every system moves towards harmony. Whatever is happening, every system in the universe, it's the tendency is towards harmony. Even after an explosion, eventually the particles are moving towards a certain kind of order, right?
Yeah.
Chaos to order. So ultimately, ultimately the machine is serving us. I believe in Kabbalah they call it the tikkun, the opponent. Every time you want to raise your consciousness, you need an opponent that is the right opponent. It's like going to the gym. If you're a really strong guy and you pick the 10-pound weights, that's not gonna do it for you. But now you pick up 50 pounds and ah, that breaks your muscle. It hurts the next day. You feel sore. It's tense, you sweat a lot, um, but that's how you grow. And we need to be met by an opponent that brings that out of us. So I would say ultimately the machine is like a pendulum, disconnecting us so much from nature and our humanity that we're starting to see a mental health pandemic. And there's going to come a point where everybody's losing it so much, including those who were benefiting from the machine, because there's just so long you can do it until you realize all this power and all this money, and I'm so miserable. And then it started to happen already. The big entrepreneurs that uh, people make fun of it, the entrepreneurs, the Silicon Valley tech bros drinking ayahuasca, but it's a good thing. They reach the pinnacle of power and influence and whatever they built, and they realized this isn't it, and they're going back to the roots to understand what went wrong. So I'd say the machine is ultimately everything. Everything serves us. Now, in the most surface layer, it's our collective unconscious. It's it's where the machine is not some evil entity or some three multi-billionaires plotting in a dark basement, and it's not that. Ultimately, there is no, like, for a bully to exist, there has to be a victim. And this is something that's very hard for most people to comprehend. It was very hard. It took me a lot of tears and pain during ceremony to accept this, because I wanted to believe that there's a world where there's good people and bad people, and the bad people are messing the world up, and I'm a good person, and there's some more people that are bad, and because they're bad, it's because is that the world is in a big mess. And I realized, you know, I had former romantic partners that lied in a way that was painful, that were unfaithful, that were violent physically. I had very good reasons to point a finger and say uh, she was a narcissist. I was the victim of this. I have the scars to prove it. I have the stories, and I told them for some time, and people agreed, and they're like, "Wow, that sounds crazy. Yeah, yeah, for you, yeah, she sounds like a crazy lady." And I found myself dating similar women moving forward, finding until it happens so many times that I realized, why do they attract the same kind of behavior? What's going on? And I realized, actually, I pretend I'm a victim. I'm not taking responsibility for the role that I played in whatever is happening in this dance. When I took responsibility, I realized, wow, there's many things that I do that is not my fault, but it's my responsibility. It's from the choices that I make, just choosing that person. I chose her. I saw red flags and I stuck around. So I can't put the blame on her. If I loved myself truly, as soon as I saw the first red flag, I would have had a conversation and maybe pushed away. People that end up in toxic relationships, for example. Oh, my ex-husband, my ex-boyfriend, he's doing this and he needs healing. It's like, no, no, no. Maybe he's a terrible person. I'm not taking that away. But the fact that we got pulled into the dance means that we liked the music as well. And until we own that, we're gonna keep pulling people into us that dance a similar dance with us. I was bullied at school. I will have random guys when I moved to Canada. I will be out in a club minding my own business, and guys will come and just shoulder me, and I will get into fights all the time. And I'm thinking, what's going on? I'm just here sipping my beer against the wall, and some guy comes and bumps into me, and I'm everywhere. And I thought, until I realized, uh, like, there's a part of me that had this sense of powerlessness. I didn't have boundaries. So I attracted people who had a similar, the other side of the coin. Power moves in vacuums. So people that feel they need to feel powerful, they'll find someone who feels powerless, because you know, then there's a difference in pressure. So from high pressure to low pressure, that's how things move. That's how energy moves. So, from positive to negative, and then it circulates. So ultimately, the machine exists because we are a good fit. We're dancing to it. Our collective wounds are a very good match to it, and we don't transform it by throwing rocks at the machine, by regulating the machine. We transform it by what is the part of me that is a good match to this. I complain, but I consume things. I objectify people. I don't treat my body in a sacred way, and then I'm complaining that Monsanto is. I, most people bitch and complain that Monsanto is poisoning the crops, the fields, and then they go drinking in the weekend. That's being a hypocrite. Like, why can't they take better care of the earth? Why can't you take better care of your body, which is the piece of earth that you were allocated? You can take care of this little part, but you expect that some other person should have the awareness that you don't have to take care of, acres and acres and plots of land. Like, no, I think we've only earned a right to confront something when we've embodied it. Like, hey, like, you know what? I treat my body like a sacred vessel. Therefore, I can speak a word of invitation, of reflection towards someone that is mistreating um, earth, right? But the change, but the person that is mistreating the earth, what they need is not a lecture. What they need is to recognize that, wow, like, I'm an extension of this thing that I'm destroying. So ultimately, my belief, I don't have a philosophy, but my belief is that we 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 cannot fight the machine because it's an illusion. It's an expression of everything we have disowned within ourselves. It's it's an expression of the work we have yet to do. Like the crazy girlfriends I had, they were an expression of the work I hadn't done. They were the perfect, uh, they played their role perfectly to mirror to me the ways in which I was not loving myself, respecting others. So they were perfect actors in the play of life. So the machine is maybe just bigger and with more intricacies, but it's a perfect expression of what we need to evolve, of that opponent that is just meeting us right where we're at to
Yeah.
to challenge us, to confront us, to see how we respond, and we can respond with blame and thinking ourselves victims, or we can realize, oh, you know what? Okay, I'm I want to live in a way that rebels against what is happening, and not throwing stones at it, not boycotting cities and destroying cars, and that does nothing. But by living life in such a way that the way I live is a radiant example of the world I want to live in.
Hmm.
And I trust that it doesn't take too many people to do this, for things to start to shift.
Yeah, this idea of the machine being a collective unconscious and being a perfect actor in order to go back to bring this little child to mature. But in order for this little child to mature, they need to take responsibility and accountability. They no longer can live in a victim mentality, right? So these teachings of self-trust, these teachings of clarity, these teachings of connection, and teachings of learning to take full accountability and responsibility for life are, I think, teachings that are hard, are difficult. I think of plant medicine as each plant is a spirit, and each spirit
Mm-hmm.
has a personality. So, what is it about the spirit of ayahuasca
Mm-hmm.
that helps to bring those teachings to people?
For me, it's hard to like personify it because I've seen many faces of the medicine, and I've seen faces that are really playful and mischievous, and where, like, to give you an example, one of my best friends came once to ceremony, and he was super overwhelmed and stressed about his purpose. What do I do with my life? Brilliant guy, and therefore had too many options. and didn't know which one to take. And he came to the medicine because he wanted clarity about business career wise, what to do, what to pour his resources, his time, his talents into. And during the ceremony, he was sharing the day after when we were talking. Ayahuasca told him that he had come here to this earth to create like the best bubble gum company. And he was seeing the packaging and people eating it and chewing it and the ads that he was gonna create and just it was the like wild it was like the bubble gum that changed the world and he's seeing all the business plan and the whole thing, right? And laughing at it and it's so whatever. And of course, when he came out of the ceremony, he's looking at that and he's thinking like I don't think it was about the bubble gum. If anything, the lesson was like it doesn't matter what you do if like what you're looking for is a sense of joy and excitement and service. And you could do that with bubblegum. You could do it in toilets, you could do it coaching, teaching. Doesn't matter. Like what life cares for is your for your being as you do it. There's no point to any of it. There's nowhere we're getting to. It's always about where we're coming from. Are you coming from joy, from excitement, from playfulness, which for my friend was very important? Then that's it. Those are the keys for it's not about what to do, but how to do it. Then what you do doesn't matter. So some people take things very literally sometimes, and sometimes the lesson, the teaching is literally like, hey, you have to end that relationship. Sometimes, but ayahuasca is above all. I would say it's like a teacher. So it will show us what we need to see to grow, not necessarily the ultimate truth, but it will show us the part of life that we need to see in that moment to grow. So, someone that thinks that the world is hell and God doesn't exist and everything is just pain and misery, very often they have experiences that are a lot of love and peace and compassion and profound redemption and forgiveness and beauty. There's also people that come that are very spiritual, very grounded, very centered, very peaceful, and they feel, you know what, life is being righteous and good. They're taking sometimes through hell, through terror, until they can accept that this is also life, this is also God, this is another phase of the Great Spirit. So personality-wise, for me, there's been two aspects of it. One would say like the loving mother, playful, loving, embracing um, mother. Just this part that like that reminds me that God's love for me doesn't depend on me. There's nothing I could do to earn God's love or to lose it, because it's not doesn't depend on me. God doesn't need conditions to love me. So it's this reminder of, oh, I'm never beyond redemption. I'm never beyond forgiveness. Like it's whatever has happened. So there's this space where I feel like seen, accepted, felt, and like embraced by life. And then the other side of it, which personally I see quite often, is the fatherly love. Because we all want the mother love. We're familiar with it. As a culture, we chase it. Oh, love and likes, right? That's why a lot of spirituality is a little handicapped, just leaning a little too heavily on one side. And what about fatherly love? For me, the fatherly love, fatherly expression of ayahuasca is the father is wisdom. The father reminds you that in life there are consequences. Mommy will always welcome you. You could be a serial killer. You could be a rapist. You come back to your house. Usually, your mom, like you're the little boy. Doesn't matter what you do. She loves you. You could do whatever. You're always welcome in mom's embrace. Right? She reminds you that you're safe no matter what and you're loved no matter what. But the father is the one that prepares you to go out into the world, to face who you need to be as a man, as a woman, to understand that the world is full of great people and also people that will challenge you and will be your opponents, that will break you down so you can break through. And the fatherly love then points towards, hey, like this is who you've been. These are the consequences. This is where you're going. it confronts you, it brings deep awareness, integrity. This is who you say you are. This is how you're being. Like, what's going on? You know, this is where you're going to end up, in nothing changes. It forces clarity, not forces, but it invites in a very strong way clarity, discipline, reflection, responsibility, maturity. The matter is you're fine no matter what. And the Father starts preparing you to be, how to say this? The word that I have is, people have a twisted interpretation of God, but I would say, like, be a God among humans. What is God? God is just that which is a big yes to all of life, and that is responsible for all of life. Like, God doesn't flinch if there's a poor person, a sick person, a wealthy person. God is a big yes. It's like the sun, for example. It shines on everybody, sinner and saint alike. That's it. God is like this life-giving force that takes care of everything and that is responsible for everything. Being God-like humans means that we start living like that with deep clarity, big responsibility. There's nothing we say no to in our heart. Doesn't mean we have to say yes. You know, in actions we need to discern because we have limited time. But in our heart we can look at the world with love. And the person, and so the successful person celebrate their success, and the person that is suffering and wants to kill themselves, and love them equally and have the same warmth towards them. And more than that, be a creative, nurturing God, which is like to support. Hey, if if I'm strong and I see people struggling with their baggage, maybe I help them carry it. Maybe I teach them how to carry it. So there's a side of ayahuasca that is like this. It's like a fatherly love that builds you up. The mother allows you to, do a lot of healing work. You could call it like that, or like trauma work, or the mother is the place where you go and you sob until you have no tears left, where you cry, where you scream, where you let it all out until you're back to like center, the point zero. And then the father aspect of the medicine is like, all right, like now I'm going to teach you how to create. I'm going to teach you how to live impeccably. So you don't outsource God. God is not looking for your worship, but God wants to be realized within you. Express it. He, she, it wants to feel what it's capable of through the unique life that you are. So this part is like, all right, then like there's some work to do. Your father comes and tells you like, I love you, son, and because I love you, I see what you're capable of. Let me show you that. And let me show you all the ways in which you're playing small, in which you're betraying yourself, in which you're out of integrity. And there's a consequence to all of those things. So I would say these are the two phases that I've experienced of the medicine. And the reason that it wants us to heal is, in essence, the same reason that a chickpea, a steak, an egg, a lettuce shows up in our plate, which is something that all of life has for the rest of life, but humans, and is a devotion towards life, towards all of life. Piece of lettuce, a little chickpea that could have become its own thing, a little banana that could have become something as well, its old banana tree. It offers itself for life to continue, for life to improve, for life to be sustained. It's willing. And I believe that the plant kingdom, also the animal kingdom, willing to sustain life, willing to do their part, willing to contribute. Even though we, as a species, we're not taking good care, we're not very reciprocal, everything is still willing. Nature hasn't stopped producing oxygen for us because we're destroying things, hasn't stopped producing water. The sun is not withholding anything. Everything lives as an offering to life, but humans. And I believe ayahuasca is the same, an offering, a very wise plant, which when it communes within you, wants to offer you what she knows about being one with everything. The very plant looks like a DNA strand, the vine. Um, the duality, the masculine, the feminine, intersection of opposites, good and evil. It comes to bring integrity, to unite, to remind you that you're not separate, that health is not something you concoct, injecting yourself and popping some pills in your cabinet and doing some crazy things, but it's the homecoming, a return to a right place of harmony with all of life. And it offers itself because the plant has to die to go into that pot, has to be burned, has to be hit with hammers for hours so that it can break down into the little strands that then you can prepare the medicine with. So it's giving its life force so that as humans we can be a bit more aware, and that hopefully we remember who we are with such clarity that one day we too feel courageous and loving enough to give our lives for the upliftment of the rest of life.
Yeah. Just to finish off with what you were saying, this plant is sacrificing itself to the greater good. It has a purpose, right? Just like any, like you said, anything. Like the divine purpose is to sustain life,
Mm-hmm.
and this life is a life that is seeking to have, which I said, the enlightenment is kind of the simplest way I see it, is learning to be ourselves, really being our
Mm-hmm.
authentic selves. So you talked about this motherly and fatherly figure. I want to talk about the concept of trauma. That's something that I feel like is becoming very well known, the idea of trauma. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
wondering, how do you see, how do you understand trauma, and how does ayahuasca help to heal trauma?
The essence of trauma is a movement of energy that got stuck. Uh, it was never completed. Put in a very simplified way, let's say, we have fight, flight, I think they say freeze, fawn, but there's this reaction that we have that animals have, mammals have every time that there's danger. And what happens is there's danger. You're a gazelle, a tiger shows up, and suddenly you have two options. You fight or you run for your life faster than ever before, um, because you need to leave. So for you to either fight the predator or to run faster than you've ever run, your body produces excess adrenaline, cortisol, different things that will give you that will be like how do you call them? I forgot the name, but let's say they will boost you. If you can run usually at certain speed for a certain length of time, you will be able to run much longer, much faster. Your body gets injected with a lot of chemicals that prepare you for the confrontation or for the running away, right? And then in nature, you see the gazelle runs and runs and runs and runs, and then once it outruns the tiger or the lion, it slows down and they go into a sort of catharsis, start shaking. Sometimes there's many animals that they get stuck, they fall on the ground, they shake a little bit, and then they get up and like nothing happened. They're grazing again and back to normal. They just went. They were almost eaten alive by a predator, and they're back to being chilled, relaxed. They're not traumatized. No, the reason for this is that they produce excess chemicals they used to outrun the threat, and eventually when they were in a safe place, when they felt safe finally, they released the excess. They released it through movement, through shaking, through constricting the whole body, like getting like frozen and falling, and then shaking a little bit more, yawning, crying for humans. Anyways, what happens is that as human beings, we're little kids, and our parents are emotionally abusive, physically violent. It doesn't have to be big. It can be that we want our mom's hug and she looks the other way, or she makes a face where we don't feel welcomed. We experience it as a threat, especially if there was the more severe the act, the more of a threat it feels like. Abuse, violence being some of the ones that generate the most of it. But there's a threat, so our body goes into that fight, flight, freeze, and it produces a lot of chemicals that we will need to fight or fight. But as children, we're not going to fight our parents. We're so little, and we cannot fight either. We can run away because what are we going to do? We're going to take our toys and just live in the streets and that's it. No, so the problem is that something happens, a lot of chemicals are released into our body, and we don't do anything with them. And also maybe we start crying and our parents come and tell us like, shut up, don't cry, or go to your room, or there is no safety for us to feel it, to let it out of our system. So suddenly, 20 years later, we feel here or not in the stomach, and we're like, oh, I'm afraid of speaking my truth, of owning my voice, and I wonder what's going on. Maybe as a child, I was told, shut up when I was singing or when I was dancing, like, be quiet. And I felt afraid and I couldn't fight them or escape. And the excess chemical, excess cortisol, whatever, it started here. And then suddenly I live my life with a knot in my throat. Now, the knot is not, or that we could call this trauma. It's energy that got stuck. Trauma is not a parent being violent. Trauma is the story we created, the way in which we adjusted to it. So, for example, trauma is not the fact that my father or my mother told me to shut up when I was singing. Trauma is that action of me thinking it's unsafe to speak up. Trauma is the act of swallowing my voice. That is the trauma. The trauma was not the painful thing that happened, but the way in which I had to disconnect from my authenticity, from my truth, to survive it, because I didn't have the tools or the safety. So trauma is every small and big way in which we disconnect and dissociate from our authenticity, from our truth. Every way in which I feel that maybe an emotion that I feel is not welcome, so I suppress it. A conversation, my voice is not welcome, so I suppress it. Every way in which I feel that my presence is shamed or judged, so I shrink. And eventually, enough of these things happen with teachers, with parents, with family, with friends, with lovers. And then you have adults that are constipated. Life is happening, but little by little, just a little bit. They're depressed, they're anxious. People are afraid of picking up a phone and talking to the camera, doing things that are simple. But why are we so scared? We carry the memory, and it's not really in the head; it's in the body largely. And this is what people get wrong. Oh, you think it's all in your head? It's just a memory. Sure, there's a part of it that is just a memory, but there's a part of it in which that memory lives in your present moment. What trauma is in the past? What happened was in the past, but the person that is traumatized, that's not in the past. It's happening right now. The knot is right now. It's not in the past when they were 3 years old that their father yelled that's when the thing happened. It's like today, there's a 3-year-old that is running the show when they need to speak up in a business meeting or in a difficult argument with their partner. So trauma is these little ways in which we suppress ourselves, in which we didn't have a chance to complete the movement of energy, to release it from our system. So it gets stuck, and over time, that just creates pockets of acidity and toxicity in our system. And if you wait long enough, that starts to compound. Every time I'm around a woman, my throat and around my boss, and it will happen enough until eventually you have throat cancer, or being extreme, but you start having dysfunctions because the energy got stuck somewhere. the way that ayahuasca helps people heal trauma is by completing that. How do we complete it? First, we have to revisit the first moment when it started, the moment where I froze. Because, for example, I realized a couple of years ago that I was a 6-year-old scared of his mother is the Nicholas that was having romantic relationships in his 20s, all the way to his late 20s. So I realized when the argument came up, I was no longer back then a 28-year-old man. I was a 6-year-old afraid of mommy, right? So, so ayahuasca helps us. So until I've resolved that moment, I'm just gonna keep living my life from this part of me that froze, that never got expression, that was never seen, validated, that never had a chance to release the excess stress from what that situation was like, that never felt safe to even go there. So ayahuasca in the right setting creates a space where the mind relaxes and the body relaxes enough for a sense of safety to sprout. And in that safety, the memories start bubbling up. Sometimes people know exactly what's going to come up. For a lot of people, it's things that we have suppressed, things that we don't remember. Memories when we were 2 years old, 3 years old, were so painful that we put it in the box of I never want to think about this again because it's so painful and I don't know how. Such a big feeling for such a small body when we're babies, when we're kids. So ayahuasca starts bringing this up, and as we revisited the memory, we're given a second chance at feeling what we were not allowed to feel then. Maybe it's anger, maybe it's rage, maybe it's grief. You'll hear people crying or sometimes screaming or feeling really, really abandoned. Whatever comes up, the emotion starts to come up. Um, People will yawn a lot. Sometimes people will have spasms for a long time, like their body's shaking, and that means energy is moving, energy is being released. Purging, the vomiting part of ayahuasca, when people release, is very often when the purging happens, almost every time for most people, comes with a vision. Either you see it in your mind or you see it in the bucket. So you vomit, and then in the bucket you see your mother's face with the belt. You understand what's coming out. The pockets of acidity start being released. So ayahuasca works in an integral way. It purifies the body. It starts removing the the imprints, the leftovers of those experiences that live in the body that create disease, that create the pattern. But it also brings us back to those moments to complete the cycle, to understand that it was never about us, that my mom, my dad was screaming because he was a burnt out, disconnected man, because he had his own demons to face, that because my mom had her own childhood pain. And in that space, it's not mental, it's emotional. We feel that we are going through our most painful moments, holding the hand of a very wise spirit that is filling our heart with love, with compassion, with wisdom, with understanding. So we see the perfection of all of it. And in that perfection, we can finally forgive from the heart and forgive ourselves for what we put ourselves through as a result of that experience. Usually at this point of when we finally let go, that's when that's when people purge out. And as you purge, it comes out in the bucket, and suddenly you feel lighter. So that's out of your system for good. Not in no like you can revisit the memory and you feel fine because it's been completed. It's been brought to you got what you needed out of that. You expressed it, you cried it, you felt it fully, you understood what it meant, why it happened. You have compassion for your parents, for yourself, and ultimately you feel free from it. So ayahuasca does that. It creates a space where the mind slows down enough for the body to speak. And as the body speaks, the body is just waiting because this is a miraculous machine. When we don't listen to our body, we experience pain. oh, my back hurts, or I have whatever it is. Having migraines, I'm having digestive issues. That's our body trying to scream to us, like, hey, like there's something you need to pay attention to. There's something that is not flowing in harmony. You need to slow down, pay attention to it. The more numb we are, the more the body has to scream, which is when people get diagnosis of either chronic illnesses or cancer, or they get strokes. Something that shakes the person awake happens because pain is just inviting us to slow down and pay attention. So when something hurts, it hurts right now, and it forces you to stop everything and look inwards, or at least pay attention to your body. So the body's trying to do that. We don't have to wait until it's screaming. Way, way, way before the cancer happened, way before the migraine, way before the back pain, way before all of these things, the body was already like, trying to communicate something. But our mind was so busy and our lives were so busy that we couldn't hear the message. So with ayahuasca, this slows down, this relaxes, and above all, this is giving a megaphone. And everything that it's been waiting for us to hear starts saying. So it all comes up. That's why for most people when they drink ayahuasca, it's for most people it starts revisiting their life, their painful moments, their traumatic experiences, the experiences that were never completed, the ones they forgot, the things that hurt them as children, but they pretended were okay, the stories they built, the ways in which they disconnected from themselves, the fake persona that was created as a result of the pain. Like I was in my 20s, I was using steroids, 200 pounds of lean, mean muscle, and I got tattooed, and I wanted to be a tough guy. Why? Because unconsciously I felt very powerless, very insecure, because my mom was very violent. She beat me up so much that I felt like unconsciously I made the decision, like nobody's gonna fuck with me. Nobody's gonna even consider coming close to me or hurting me. So the toughness was not because I'm a strong man, because I was an afraid one. So if I look tough, if I look mean, if I look huge and angry, then it's less likely for people to come and hurt me. I didn't know this, you know. So my big part of my life is just built trying to run away from feeling powerless, feeling afraid, feeling vulnerable. But when I revisited those memories, when I forgave myself, my mother, when I cried my tears, felt my anger, then suddenly, oh, I felt safe. I don't see the world as a threat. I felt secure, like, oh, I love myself, I'm okay. And suddenly, the relationships that I attract are different. My health is different. My relationship with work is different because there's a degree of self-acceptance, of self-love. So that's how ayahuasca works. It, it, and that's also why many people fear it, because people are afraid of seeing themselves and maybe realizing that the life they have built is not theirs, and that if they actually followed their heart and their greatest joy and authenticity, that maybe they wouldn't be working the work that they have the partner that they have, and spend their time in the way that they spend it. That's a lot of change. It's a tall order, and most people
Yeah.
are not courageous enough to go there.
So that's exactly what my next question was. You know, it's why is ayahuasca so feared, right? And I think you just answered that. It's this it's going to give you the medicine, and a lot of times medicine is bitter, and it 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 doesn't taste so good, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
easier for us to live in a life of ignorance and to just avoid these truths than it is to face it. But in reality, the price we pay for ignoring it in terms of suffering is way greater than facing it and being able to heal it. And in terms of healing with ayahuasca, it kind of sounds like it's the general healing journey of I think healing in general has the same journey and the same progression as no matter what medicine you're using. If it's a true healing, has the same progression. It starts with a blockage of some sort, and it needs to be acknowledged. It needs to be released, and from there you complete a cycle. it has to do with completion of the cycle. So it seems like ayahuasca, it has this ability to bring you into these moments where that original blockage was created, and it allows you to acknowledge it, to release it, and to bring forgiveness and understanding to it. In terms of more for people that are interested in trying ayahuasca, what contraindications do you have? Like what sort of people shouldn't be looking to do ayahuasca? Is there any contraindications for that?
Hmm. Yeah, so I think there's multiple that probably the best and most reliable ways to check on Google most of those. Health-wise, for example, someone who is on antidepressants and sometimes also on certain anxiety medications, that's a no-go because the antidepressants are trying to suppress how you feel. Ayahuasca is gonna
Yeah,
do the opposite. It's gonna magnify
yeah,
how you feel so you can process it. So it can break it. I don't know the science behind it, but it can create some, it can damage you and it can leave you
yeah,
in a worse state because it acts in opposite directions. So your brain just um so a lot of medications towards depression, anxiety. That being said,
yeah,
there's when people work with a specific center, we've received people that have been medicated for decades, and we tell them how to slowly come off them for how long, and we've successfully helped numerous people get off uh, medications completely, like antidepressants and anxiety
yeah,
medications. So it's a possibility, but it requires courage because when people have been on these medicines on these pharmaceuticals for a long time, they don't remember what feeling feels like, and it's overwhelming once they get off them. To feel alive is overwhelming if
yeah,
you've been numb, and then yeah, it requires a lot of courage. So there's that. There's people that have bipolar, schizophrenia, or things in that regard, like diagnosed, I'll call these dissociative mental health complications. It's not that it is bad for them, but for a person to heal themselves from that, they'll probably need to live in the jungle with another for at least 6 to 8 months under supervision and drink medicine there. And there's elders that do that, but it's rare today because it's a lot of work for them. And usually they just don't have the time or the infrastructure to take care of that. And people don't have the patience or the capacity to make that happen. So usually, if a person is very dissociated, like with psychosis or schizophrenia or bipolar, it can trigger it can make it bigger because you're feeling more intensely, and then if the mind is fractured, it can be challenging for that person. Not necessarily bad. We've had people that have had like maybe like mouth symptoms of that, and then they come back into their center. I would say there's also a lot of people that they ask, hey, like, so do I'm feeling so anxious. I don't think right now is the time to drink the medicine because I'm just gonna have a bad trip. No, we drink medicine when we're sick, when we're afraid, when I feel it's like let me wait until my life is perfect before I do the thing to heal. It doesn't happen in that order. But of course, there are things that people have been medicated or brought into a mental health institution for. Those can be delicate because ayahuasca opens us up to the spiritual realms, to different dimensions of reality. And without going too far into that direction, just it can show us that there's way more to life than what we know so far. And that's very liberating because we start to understand the meaning of life. And wow, like we're so small as human beings, and this creation is so vast and infinite and beautiful. But for a person that is having a hard time just dealing with their human experience and they dissociate from that, this enhanced awareness can become a hiding place. Oh, let me just now let me just tap into the angelical, beautiful, psychedelic highs these realms and let me abandon my human experience. And so in those cases, it's contraindicated, and usually it's a person by person kind of case. So usually, let's say in our center, I interview every person, and if I sense from the conversation with them that they are not grounded or stable enough, which is not the same as like we receive people that are suicidal, they're depressed, they're in severe anxiety, and I feel like they're still tethered enough to their body to come back and to get value out of that. But there's some other people that maybe they sound fine, but I feel they're really dissociated and they're one strong experience away from a psychotic episode. And that person, you know what? Maybe you start with some breath work, some rebirthing breath work with some other middle step, and we'll assess how you're doing and if ayahuasca is a good step for you. Beyond this, there's things for people with some cardiac health complications. All of this is well documented online. I would say more than all of these health contraindications, it's an attitude to kind of filter that is the most important one. And it's that if a person is not willing to take full responsibility for their life, what they see during ayahuasca may be too confronting, and they may feel traumatized more from what comes up. For example, my mom was suicidal. She had written goodbye letters to my sisters, to myself. Nobody knew. But it was as a result of severe depression, anxiety, bankruptcy, everything, fibromyalgia, chronic health complications, isolation, everything started breaking apart after her divorce from my dad. So she blamed my dad and my sisters and I for a lot of her pain and her misery. And she felt that she was taken advantage of, that she was cheated on, so many things. She had very good reasons to be a miserable woman, extremely good reasons. When she drank ayahuasca, she realized she had created all of that for herself. Now, if you tell a woman that was cheated on by her husband that you created this in today's society, you're going to get canceled. You're victim blaming, victim shaming. What do you mean? Every time that I touch the topic on social media somewhere, it stirs the pot.
Yeah.
And rightly so, because if the wound is very fresh and you poke near it, it creates pain. But it showed my mother how she had created her divorce, her bankruptcy, her fibromyalgia, her isolation from everybody, her depression. It's all you're responsible. It's all you. It's been you all along. You punished yourself because of an inherent degree of loss of worth, rooted from her childhood experiences. And it's like you needed to create the perfect circumstances to prove to yourself that your life is not worth it. Like you created all of that, and it was the most painful thing because my mom was, she was a victim. She will be the person that complains, and every time I will call her back then, your father and your sisters and you, and just everybody's victim. And very good reasons. She had a whole story around it, and her family will be like, yeah, 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 your ex-husband, your children, they're terrible children. People agree with her. So for her, it was the most difficult thing to do because she wanted to be reassured that it wasn't your fault. Maybe not her fault, but it was her responsibility, which she had neglected. And it took one night for decade-long fibromyalgia thing that no doctor in Europe, in the States, in South America could help her treat. It went out like that. She realized her fibromyalgia had happened because she had frozen. She never moved forward. She never moved on from the pain of the divorce. She froze. She was reliving that in her mind. So her body started freezing to try to mirror to her, to show her, look what you're doing. You're like, look how painful it is to remain stuck and stiff. But no, she thought she kept blaming other people. But that day she took responsibility and she understood, I've created all of this. And because she embraced that, like her life turned around. One night, that's all it took for her health complications, her finances, her relationships, just like everything was a 180 comeback. But we've had people that they come to the same thing. The ayahuasca the medicine shows them, so you've created this. You're nobody's victim. You're so powerful. How could you be anyone's victim if you're made of what the creator is made of? If you have this such a miracle body and such a beautiful mind, how could you be, how could anything punish you? You know? But some people, even in that space, they resist because they wanted someone to blame. They wanted someone to go under the guillotine. That was the one to blame. And now I'm reassured that it was my ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend that was a narcissist. I mean, because of them, I'm like this. Because my father was a drunk, I'm like this. And it's gonna show you, it's gonna acknowledge you, like, wow, yeah, that hurts. I'm gonna bypass that. But eventually it's gonna bring you to like, all right, that hurt. And you hurt yourself more than your dad did. Your mother yelled at you once to shut up, but you've yelled that within your head for 20 years. Shut up, don't speak, don't take up too much space. She did it once, you've done it ever since. And that's what people are afraid of finding out, that they've been stick in their own will. So people who come thinking that they're gonna find somebody, something to blame, they have a hard time. It's rough for them to sit with the medicine.
Okay.
People that want to take responsibility, people that want easy fixes. They think I just drink this and it does the work for me. It doesn't work like that. It'll help you out, it'll teach you, it'll show you where to go, what to look at, but ultimately it can't override your agency. You are your own being, and it'll help you release a lot of things. It'll make it easier for you, give you a little push in the right direction, but you gotta pedal. And if you don't pedal, you will fall. You can't, oh, I drank ayahuasca, so now forever I'm in perfect balance and I don't need to pedal and I don't need to steer. That's not how life works. Like me, ayahuasca gives you some training wheels for a little bit, few days, pushes you in the right direction, helps you steer, shows you what balance feels like. But it tells you like, hey, like it's your life. It's on you to manage it, to steer it properly, to keep the balance, to keep pedaling.
Well, I think that's a great way to finish off here, Nico. Thank you so
Mhm.
much for your time. Really appreciate it. Is there anything else that you want to say before we finish off the podcast?
Yeah, thank you, Edward. It was a beautiful conversation. I'll say for people that are curious about plant medicine, or you can find me, you can go to ayahuascacolombia.com, and there we have
Mhm.
our retreats. Or if you look up Ayahuasca Colombia Nicholas Cannon on YouTube, I've created well over, I think now 300 educational videos telling people what to do, what not to do, how to find the right place. You don't have to drink medicine with us, but it's good to do this process with people that know what they're doing, so you avoid potentially unsafe experiences. And
Yeah.
above all, if you feel the calling and you're curious about it and you're sitting on the fence, usually there's a part of you that knows that a different life is possible, that health is possible, that different way of living is possible, and that part is going to pull you towards what it believes will help you out. It can be meditation, it can be dancing, it can be prayer, it can be something. But if you feel curious about this as a potential healing modality, do not dismiss it. Indigenous cultures have so much wisdom, and they knew that nature wants us to thrive. It's done that with us and for us since the very beginning. Nature feeds us. We are her children. She wants us to be happy. A mother just wants for her children to be happy, to be joyful, to live a good life. And ayahuasca is a gift from Mother Earth as that. Like, wow, like my children are sad, they're depressed, they're anxious, they have chronic pain. Let me give them something uh, in case they feel inclined and curious to heal, to receive this medicine. Um, it's not it's not this scary drug as people paint it. It's a possibility for a blank slate, for a sense of rebirth, a sense of reconnection, a sense of restoring the soil that we are, so that every seed we plant afterward, the seed of meditation, the seed of therapy, the seed of yoga, can sprout. Because many people try so many things and it works a little bit, but not really. And usually it's because you're planting the right seeds, but in soil that is so dry that nothing's going to sprout. So if you feel like you're in that kind of space, ayahuasca resets, repairs the soil, and then afterwards, way easier to have a solid spiritual path, a solid path of healing and growth, and see results with simpler, more day-to-day practices. So that's my invitation. And if, yeah, I'm on Instagram. If anyone has any question, I'm happy to be of service.
Nico, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing, and
Mhm.
I look forward to maybe seeing you in Colombia one of these days when I go.
Yes, yeah, looking forward to it, Edward. Thank you, and yeah, see you
Okay.
next time.
Okay, see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to Unity Health Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions on any guests who you think I should interview, please feel free to leave it in the comment section below. See you next time.